Well, good afternoon, everyone. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Bernadette, you good with that?
Yep, let's go.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what part of the country you're in. Welcome to our July 22nd meeting of the EDA University Center and Educational Association of University Center meeting, our webinar. We have a great program put together. Bernadette, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Bernadette Grafton. I am the University Center Program Coordinator for the Economic Development Administration. I know I've had some interaction with most of you, whether that was in person or via email. So if I haven't met you yet, hopefully we will have the chance in the near future. Dan and I have been doing these webinars for almost a year now, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I think it is a year.
Yeah, so we're excited to continue this. We took a little bit of a break because things just went a little crazy for everyone, and we just wanted to jump back in and make sure that we're all staying in touch and coordinating as much as possible, especially in regards to our special presentation that we have today. So I guess we can go into the next slide.
Sure. Well, let me real quick, I'll introduce myself. Dan Ripke, I'm the Executive Director with the Educational Association of University Centers, and I'm here representing the association, as well as we have with us today our brand new ensconced president, Christy Bell. Christy?
Hey, thanks, Dan, and welcome to all the participants. And I'm really excited about this opportunity to be working with the EDA. For those who don't know, I'm with the University of Alaska system and have been involved with the University Center since early 2000s, late 90s, first as a graduate student and then eventually as a director of our University Center. Now I oversee an umbrella of programs, and so I'm still active with the University Center, just not as directly. And I just wanted to give everyone a heads up. July 30th, we'll be having our EAUC annual meeting, one of our board meetings. You should be receiving an invite here shortly. If you haven't already received some, heads up. If you haven't received something, probably by late this week, early next week, get a hold of Dan or I, and we'll make certain you get included in. And we have a fabulous slate of candidates and are looking forward to getting all of you actively engaged. And so, Dan, I hope that covers.
That's perfect. And thank you for joining us again, Christy, this morning. So, Bernadette, you want to talk about our program this morning?
Sure. We'll have a couple of, yes, we'll have an update from EAUC first, and then I want to take this opportunity to show you guys a little bit of some of the updates that we've actually been making on our website for university centers. So I'll do a little bit of a demonstration there, won't be too long, and then we'll give most of the time over to Ksenia for a conversation about our new metrics and give you guys an opportunity to ask questions if you have any. So we can just jump in.
Great. All right, real quick, just an update from the EAUC. We're still working on our membership drive. The benefits of membership include both our newsletter as well as legislative updates and news from other university centers around the country. So we will be picking out to collect best practices from all of you. So look for emails from all of us. We'll be posting some of that information in our members only website. So we do have a special website link where members can get access to special reports that we've collected over the years, as well as we have discounts for the annual conference that we will be hosting in Washington, DC, hopefully in the spring. We are in discussions with the National Association of Development Organizations. For those of you that might remember, this year we actually had a joint session scheduled with them, or actually a reception, and we both had to pull the plug literally at the 9th hour in terms of having to cancel the event just due to the COVID-19 crisis. In fact, I know NATO has a bunch of credit at a hotel, as do we. So we're looking forward to bringing the event back to Washington, DC. The other thing that we will be doing For those of you who attend the University Association or the UEDA annual conference that was supposed to be in Savannah, that event, as many of you may know, has gone virtual, like many events. So that event, we will have a pre-conference session, just like last year in Reno. However, this one will be a virtual pre-conference session. So look forward to more information about that by our next meeting, which will be in September. And as Christy mentioned, our first board of directors meeting will be on July 30th, and we'll be sending out the final agenda for that within the next couple days. So, and let me switch it over to you, Bernadette.
Great, thank you very much. So I'm just gonna give me a second so I can share my screen.
Oh, do you have a? Okay.
Sorry, I'm stealing it from you.
All right, there you go.
All right, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, so hopefully most of you are familiar with the fact that we have a UC webpage on EDA's website. If not, here it is. We haven't updated the text in quite some time. This is a work in progress, but I just wanted to show you where we're at this point. So we included a map at some point last year. I've lost track of all time, as I'm sure many of us have. So all of the current university centers have pins on this map. One of the more recent things that we have included is this drop-down box, so you can search for a university center by state. I understand that most of our states actually only have one university center, but there are some states that have 2 or even 3. Regardless, it's just easier to narrow things down by state instead of trying to find where a university center is on a map like this. So until we have a better website, this is what we're going with. So I just want to walk you through this really quickly so you can see how this works. So when you search by state, you'll get whatever university centers are in that state. If there is a PDF one-pager that we have been emailing about recently, and if you haven't gotten an email yet, hopefully you will soon, that PDF is going to appear here and you can go directly to the PDF. If you click on the link, you'll go to a University Center profile page, which is new and something I'm very excited about, and hope that you'll all take the opportunity to go to our website, take a look at your profile page, and let us know if there's any information that's on here that is incorrect or misleading, or anything that you would really just like changed for one reason or another, and let me know. Happy to make that change. We've made an effort to make sure that it's as accurate as possible based on the research we've done and reaching out to some of you directly to get this information. But the whole point of having these profile pages is to allow anyone from the public and sometimes more importantly, actually congressional representatives to be able to go to the University Center profile pages and quickly learn about the university centers rather than emailing us to learn about the program every year. They can find that information for themselves. We're hoping to do a little bit more with this eventually and do some analysis on the types of activities that all of you are doing, and maybe try to bucket each university center into various activity types so that it's a little bit easier to find based on that. But for now, this is the information we have. We've got a brief scope of work. The one-page fact sheet will be here, and then your social media links, wherever you have them, will be placed here. Ideally, we'll also have some resources linked to on these profile pages. So if you have a tool or a resource that you've developed that you would like us to include on the UC profile page, also let us know. We'd be happy to do that. We want this to be a useful site wherever possible. So those are the profile pages. Lastly, quickly, I just wanted to let you know that we've got all of the webinars linked to here, and I know EAUC also has the recorded webinars on their website. We want to make it accessible for those of you who aren't able to make each and every webinar. They're recorded here. We also have a few resources on COVID-19, just what we've gathered so far. This is a list of university centers that have put together resources for their communities or for their regions on COVID-19 and CARES Act related items. So that is there as well. And then lastly, HBCUs are a growing topic of interest congressionally and in this administration, and so this is something we wanted to be responsive to. So we currently have 5 university centers that are HBCUs, and we wanted to make sure that that was easy to find on our website, so we put together this link. And each of these links goes to the profile pages where we've also indicated that it is a HBCU. That is all I wanted to share.
Great. Let me see. I want to make sure I'm getting back to sharing my screen. There we go. And we did have a question from the audience. Very quickly, Bernadette, you had asked folks if they could rename themselves in the
yes.
In their profile. So to give, someone had asked a question of how you do that. The way you do that is you click on your menu, if you will. It might appear at the bottom or the top of the screen where it says participants, and you should get a list of all the attendees. And then you go to your phone number or link, whatever it might be, and you click on more, and then you can rename yourself right there. Hopefully that was clear to everyone. So, and then Bernadette, really quick, a question from audience on your last comments. Do we need to email someone to update the one pager or wait for the email to come?
If you can just go ahead and email me, we can get that started. It is a work in progress. We have a new hire, David Riedel, who has been helping me on this project, and he's been working through our entire list of university centers and going through and emailing everyone one by one. So if you haven't gotten an email yet, it's probably because he just hasn't gotten to you. But if you want to get a head start, please email me and I'll make sure that you get connected to him.
Okay. All right. And just so you know, apparently for some reason, we don't have the list of all the attendees up on the screen right now. So I'll see if I can't correct that. It might be something in the preferences. We'll do that during the presentation.
Okay, no worries.
So, all right. Do you want to continue on here about the COVID-19 resources, or you've already covered that sufficient?
No, we're good. We can keep going.
All right. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce our next speaker.
Wonderful. All right. Next up, we have Ksenia Shadrina. She and I have actually been working at EDA for almost the same amount of time. She started a few months before me, but she's just been a tremendous asset to EDA in completely reforming how we collect data and how we think about data. And she's done an amazing job here, especially on our new metrics and evaluation. She started working on this about 4 years ago, right when she came on board, and it's been a huge labor of love for her, and we're happy to have her here today to walk us through all of that and kind of where we stand. We've made some big changes moving forward that will affect all of our grantees or all of our non-infrastructure type grantees. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Ksenia, so you can take it away.
Thank you so much, Bernadette. Let me just try and share my screen. First things first. Okay, let's see. All right, can everyone see my screen? Mm-hmm. Yes, okay, wonderful. So thank you everyone for making time today to attend this webinar. We know how incredibly busy everyone is right now, so this is very appreciated for the folks from Alaska, especially. You know, I applaud your resolve to continue working despite the earthquake, etc. So thank you so very much. And thank you, Bernadette, for the warm introduction. I will say that I had a lot of help, and I still have a lot of help with trying to, yes, reform the way we collect data, but also kind of rethink the way we assess the effectiveness and efficiency of our programs, but more importantly, help demonstrate the impact of the work of our grantees, because we think that that's the most important task that any data collection or a program evaluation or performance measurement exercise can accomplish, is to demonstrate the amazing work that you guys do on the ground. And so I'll just start off this presentation and try to be as concise as possible, although I probably could talk for hours about this topic. But I will start off with a couple of quotes, and I will say that generally I'm not big on quotes, especially in presentations, but here it's kind of important to start off with these two statements from one of our research projects, or that actually served as a foundation for this new non-infrastructure metrics and evaluation framework. So it was a cooperative research with SRI International and some other leading research institutions. And so in one of the reports, we included these two statements. Economic development programs are inherently difficult to evaluate due to the analytical distance between focused program activities and desired economic outcomes, as well as the challenge of identifying valid indicators for complex programs that fuel economic development capacity building. Standard approaches to program evaluation often focus only on narrow economic indicators, such as company and job creation. This approach does not do justice to the long-term impact of program activities achieved through capacity building outcomes on broader and long-term macroeconomic outcomes. And so basically what we're saying here is that the standard approaches to, I would say, performance measurement and program evaluation don't do justice to the work that you accomplish on the ground. So today I will quickly go over the current performance measurement practices at EDA. I will briefly touch upon the old and the new GPRA for non-infrastructure programs. And if you do not know what GPRA stands for, I will demystify it in just a few moments. I will talk in a little bit more detail about the new metrics and evaluation framework for non-infrastructure portfolio at EDA, aka the new GPRA for non-infrastructure portfolio. And lastly, I will talk about what's next and what you can expect in the next few months. So just very briefly, EDA, much like any other federal agency, collects and reports on performance measures in compliance with the Government Performance and Results Act of 1993. That was amended in 2010 to make it more modern, and primarily it requires that all of the performance reports are published in machine readable formats. But basically, this is law. We collect and analyze information, performance information in compliance with the law. And the current EDA performance goals are split into two goals. The first one is based on physical infrastructure investments that promote private enterprise and job creation in economically distressed communities and regions. And under this goal, we collect information for the public works and economic adjustment assistance, construction and revolving loan funds grantees. For the performance goal 2, we focus on non-infrastructure investments that build community capacity to achieve and sustain regional competitiveness and economic growth. And spoiler alert, university centers are subject to EDA performance goal 2. You can find more detailed information on GPRA and reports and tools and toolkits on eda.gov/performance. So here I just want to take a quick moment to make a few points which I think that we don't make often enough, but GPRA data are very, very important. They're very important for internal analyses, for our I guess, trying to ascertain what it is that our program's actually doing and under what conditions, what kind of impact and outcomes, they're achieving. Secondly, very important, the data that we collect through GPRA processes are incorporated into the congressional budget justification. So the data that you provide to us on the outputs and outcomes under your projects get incorporated into our requests for budget. So very, very important. Next, the data get incorporated into the annual performance plan and reports, which is part of the GPRA law. The data get published on the DOC performance dashboards, and hopefully we'll provide you with the links to all of these reports so that you could peruse it. You will see a little screenshot on the right-hand side, kind of just showing you a preview of these dashboards if you're not familiar with them yet. And then somehow I hid this point, but we also get data calls from stakeholders. Anybody from Congress can reach out to us and ask us about performance. The Government Accountability Office often looks into our performance data and performance processes, and Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, are also one of our stakeholders who take interest in our performance. And lastly, storytelling. So we often collect narrative stories, which are quite compelling, but being able to collect data in a way that would allow us to quantify and tell a better story in terms of the overarching activities and outcomes is definitely could definitely bolster our case for efficiency, impact, and effectiveness of our programs. So I will not go too deeply into the Foundations for Evidence-Based Policymaking Act of 2018, but it is a law, and it is a law that will require us to collect data, whether publicly available or direct collection from our grantees, and use it to develop evidence to support policymaking or our program design, for instance. Again, there's quite a bit of information about that, but we're a little short on time. But this is kind of like another point in support of better data collection practices and analysis. So the current data collection forms for GPRA, I'm sure most of you are familiar with at least one of them, but the current ones are the ED 915, with which we collect outcomes information for public works, economic adjustment assistance, infrastructure, and revolving loan fund investments. So as in goal 1, performance for EDA. And then ED 916, which is a form that's used for economic development districts and Indian tribes. ED 918, which is a data collection form for trade adjustment assistance centers. And finally, ED 917, which you're probably all familiar with if you responded to a GPRA questionnaire from us. And here it is pictured on the right-hand side. So the ED 916, ED 918, and ED 917 are basically the goal 2 forms. So old versus new, what is changing? What are we talking about today? So the old or expiring forms, which will expire at the end of November of 2020, are actually all of the forms, ED 915, ED 916, ED 917, and ED 918. Now, I should point out right away that ED 915, which is the form that's used for infrastructure investments, is actually being extended right now without revisions. But the ED 916, 17, and 18 are being revised. So the old expiring forms are program focused, like I just mentioned. They're they're quite narrow in scope and only have select outputs and outcomes. They're PDF forms, and they entail annual data collection. The new forms, ED 916, 17, and 18, will apply to all of EDA's non-infrastructure programs to accommodate a variety of projects and intended outcomes, as well as the overlaps among different programs, non-infrastructure programs at EDA. ED 916 will now be a semi-annual outputs collection and will be administered during the period of performance semi-annually. ED 917 is now going to be an annual outcomes questionnaire for the grantees serving clients, such as UCs, and it will be administered for 5 years since the start of your grant. And ED 918 is basically an identical questionnaire, but for the grantees that do not serve direct clients. So let's say there are research and national technical assistance grantees that are focused just on research, and they're not going to be, providing services to any clients. So they will also get an annual outcomes questionnaire for 5 years. These questionnaires are based on years of novel research by leading research institutions at EDA. And lastly, they're going to be web-based, flexible instruments that are going to be administered via Qualtrics. That will provide better flexibility and easier record keeping. Hopefully, I will have a few minutes to demo these instruments to you. All right, so just to very quickly show the timeline, the progression of this project, and probably demonstrate that quite a bit of research and thought went into this. We've been working, or the research for this particular project predates me at EDA. It started in FY 2011, and between FY 2011 and 2014, EDA worked with leading research institutions such as UNC Chapel Hill, SRI International, I believe GW, to develop and test different economic development logic models. They conducted a couple of studies on the programs at EDA, which actually are now renamed, but they were called I6 and JIAC. They're entrepreneurship projects-based programs. From FY 2015 to 2017, we have been focusing on refining the logic model to make it agnostic enough to fit all of EDA's non-infrastructure portfolio. SRI and EDA cooperated on an econometric study that tested the logic model and the connections between different elements in the logic model. We've also developed a toolkit for economic development practitioners that delineates different data collection protocols and also best practices for economic development program evaluation. And all of these materials are once again available on the eda.gov/performance. Since 2017, we have been working on implementing the recommendations from the econometric study and the toolkit. And so we've conducted a pilot of data collection on 8 EDA grantees, and that's all that we were allowed, because otherwise we would trigger what we call Paperwork Reduction Act. And so in any case, so it was a small sample size, but we followed up with interviews and incorporated quite a bit of feedback into these final forms that that hopefully you will see at the end of this presentation. We've conducted internal working group meetings, again, Paperwork Reduction Act processes, which was finalized at the end of May with OMB approving these data collection instruments, so that was great news for us. We formed an implementation working group just to talk about the logistics and different programs within EDA, and right now we're actually at the final phase of communication and rollout, and today is a bit of an inaugural, I guess, presentation in terms of communicating these instruments to the outside audience. All right, so again, I want I won't delve too deeply into what the framework and the system will entail, just because we're a bit short on time, but just very briefly, the framework will entail direct data collection on the outputs and capacity outcomes from the grantees or you, some automated data collection through APIs for the most part of third-party or publicly available data for baseline conditions and realized outcomes at the regional level. And finally, the analysis, which will range from aggregation of data into summary statistics to compiling the data into a performance measurement framework to hopefully longer term, but hopefully not too long, will be able to have enough capacity to conduct program evaluation studies internally. So the system is basically based on the economic development logic model. You will see from left to right, we are tracing information on initial conditions on the ground where you operate, inputs in terms of portfolio of programs, EDA funding, other funding, then the outputs, which another word for outputs is program activities. So what it is that you actually are doing as part of the scope of work to build capacity for economic development in your region, capacity outcomes, which again, extend beyond job creation and private investment leverage, although I will say that we will still ask those questions in the questionnaires, but they will not be the only capacity outcomes or the only outcomes rather that we're going to be looking at. So I think that one of the main points of this project is to expand the scope of what we consider to be a successful outcomes and to start looking at the intermediate, or what we refer to as capacity outcomes as a resulting from the program activities that you engage in. And then the realized outcomes, which are going to be captured for the most part at the regional level. These both initial conditions and realized outcomes are not exhaustive lists, especially now in light of COVID-19. I imagine we will be adding other outcomes that are more related to recovery. But in terms of the outputs and capacity outcomes, we're going to be, our instruments for data collection are pretty much set in stone until the next PRA process in 3 years. So I know there is quite a bit going on in this slide, but I just worry not, just like I mentioned before, the instruments are going to be extremely flexible, and for each category I put and colored different categories here so that you would see that we split up questions into different categories so that you would be able to select what's applicable to you. And whenever something is not applicable, say in the facilities and equipment category, existing a new space and purpose, let's say, this question is applicable, then you will respond to what kind of a facility you either expended or leased in order to carry out activities under the EDA grant. But the equipment is not applicable. You press not applicable, you will never see a question about, well, what type of equipment was it? So the system is designed in a way to allow flexibility and to really give a grantee a choice which activities and which questions are applicable and which ones are not. So here you will see examples of data that we're trying to capture are, let's say, type and number of events that were held as part of the scope of work under the EDA grant, what was the focus of the event, was it workforce development, disaster recovery, global value chains, we're interested in that, the research and development commercialization support, if this category is applicable to you, would like to know the number of clients that you assisted with technology and commercialization or licensing or patenting or collaborative agreements. Again, with half of these questions, as you select not applicable, you will not see any follow-up questions. And so, etc. I hope you get the picture. If you don't, please ask questions in just a few moments when I wrap this up. So for the ED 917, which is the annual outcomes questionnaire, you will get a similarly structured questionnaire with questions on the outcomes. And so you will see the examples will include things that we never captured before. For instance, what was the number of new products introduced by your clients into the markets? Were there any cost reductions from operational efficiencies because of the assistance that you provided to your clients, firms, whoever it might be? In terms of markets and business networks, how many new customers were gained by your clients? How many new professional or business partnerships were formed? In terms of human capital and workforce, how many of the client's employees, stakeholders report using new skills? By the way, if you say that's not applicable, you will never see the question on the new skills that were acquired, not required. So these are the capacity outcomes. I will say that as part of the annual outcomes questionnaire, you will still see the more traditional questions on private investment leveraged by clients, changes in operating revenue, characteristics of new firms created, jobs created. But all of these questions, again, no pressure. We want to know what you know about, what your clients have achieved because of your activities or outputs sponsored under the EDA grant. And it might not be private investment leveraged yet. It might not be jobs. You just click not applicable, and then you go back to all of these other types of outcomes that you can report on. So what's next? If you received a grant on or after June 1st, you will receive your first semi-annual questionnaire sometime in early December. The first annual questionnaire will be distributed to you in June of 2021. There will be recorded trainings, previews of questionnaires posted on EDA.gov performance. You can always reach out to my team on program evaluation at EDA.gov. Alternatively, you can also reach out to Bernadette. So, and Bernadette, do I still have a couple of minutes to do just a very quick demo?
You're muted, Bernadette.
Yes, I think that would be really helpful. Thanks.
Okay, great. So just a very, very quick demo. All right, so I will warn all of you that the formatting might change, but I think that the structure is going to be very similar, if not identical, to what I'm about to show you. So the first page, we just introduce you to what this instrument is. There is some legal language that we have to include here. It kind of like sets expectations for what you're about to see in this questionnaire, and that's different categories of outputs. All right, let's see. There is a link to EDA.gov/performance where you can find all the resources that I've mentioned, but also look into what EDA considers to be a job created or private investment leverage. So there are quite a bit of performance related definitions there. If you have a question, you can click here and it should prompt, if it works, an email that, you know, sets it up as, you know, I have a question on semi-annual outputs questionnaire. So I thought that that was quite a neat feature from Qualtrics. Okay, so then these are obligatory questions on, I don't know why it's highlighted, but basically you would provide your EDA grant number because we want to know who you are. Here we would like to know who the target beneficiaries are of this grant. This particular, I guess these particular categories were selected for analytical reasons. And if you don't see your target beneficiary listed here, you can specify, you know, who you have been working with under the scope of work. Okay, so let's say we're interested in firms because you've been working with firms, which by the way, I apologize for how unbelievably dark it's gotten in my living room. I think that there's going to be a thunder in just a second. But in any case, so here you will see a gateway question for EDA Capital Challenge Grant. This will not, well, most likely it will not apply to you because you're the university center grantees. So you would just respond here, no. The reason why we have this gateway question is because the EDA Capital Challenge program is so unique in terms of its outputs and intended outcomes that we couldn't treat it as agnostically as we did other programs. So here you would say no. And here are the categories of outputs. If you already have an idea of, you know, the categories of outputs that apply to you, you just select it here. Say, you know, you've been working on R&D and commercialization support with the firms that you've been serving, for instance. It will take you to or the instrument will direct you to the appropriate question. Here we have a little description of what it is that we mean by this category. We're describing, you know, it being new research initiatives, connecting clients or beneficiaries to university partners, you know, and if you decide, okay, maybe this might not actually apply to me after all, you just press no and you will not see the questions. The next category will ask you about the financing activities. Say, yes, that does actually apply. You say yes. Here we just provide some extra directions about entering only a number, although I believe that we've set those controls throughout the instrument. And also we ask you to you know, to be careful about using NA versus 0, you know, versus no. So for instance, sometimes a certain output was intended, but it just never happened. So say because of COVID-19, you would enter 0 or say like, no, this was not accomplished. Rather than checking NA, because we want to know what's applicable to your project and what's not. So here we have a question about how many clients you assisted with securing seed funding, angel funding, venture capital funding. This kind of funding sometimes can be specific to our build to scale program. So say it's not applicable to you, you just click NA. But perhaps you helped your clients with a grant or loan application. So you say, I've assisted let's say 30 clients. That's quite a bit over the 6 months. I should mention that the semi-annual questionnaires are cumulative. So, you know, basically you will be adding the numbers since the start of your grant. Here, just for the purposes of the demo and time, I will skip through this.
Real
yes.
quick, we just had a quick question that's kind of related to what you're doing. If you're going through this, can we partially populate this area and then come back and fill it in later, or do you have to do it all at once?
Yes, actually, this is a great question. You can go back. As you see, Qualtrics does save your work. So you can go back.
So let's say, for example, you don't have some data, you could come back a week later and maybe complete it?
Yes, I think that we can, not I think, but I'm pretty sure we can set the setting to your work being saved for a week or anywhere from, I think, a week to a couple of months.
Great. Okay, thank you.
So, but you will have about a month to complete this semi-annually. But yes, this is a great question. I should also say.
Oh, go ahead. You finish what you were saying,
go ahead.
and then I have a couple other. Okay, I was just going to ask. We've got a couple of other questions coming in, and I thought while you're doing the demo, it might be a good opportunity to get those out of the way since we have 8 minutes left. So there are a number of questions on will this apply to EDA CARES Act grants?
Yes, it will. And one of the reasons why it will is because almost as soon as the CARES Act was passed, OMB released a memo, I believe it's 2021, that talks about the requirements for every agency that received CARES Act funding to report on the efficiency and effectiveness of those funds in terms of recovery from the impacts of COVID-19. So we are going to go with our regular GPRA processes, including this new instrument for the CARES Act. For the CARES Act grants.
Awesome. Another question is, given that some of this data is cumulative, can we access our previous year's responses, or should we keep a shadow report?
So in fact, at the very end of this, let me see if I can just kind of race through this. Because I know we're running out of time and it's getting so unbelievably ominous in DC, like outside right now.
Oh, yes.
So at the very end, once you complete, so here you will be asked if you're ready to complete all of the categories of outputs and say, this is just not applicable to you. You say, yes, I am. Let's go forward. This is the very last section of the questionnaire, much like the first one where we ask you about the grant number and the type of a beneficiary that was served. So every grantee will see this last section. Here we just ask about geographic information if you have it available. Census tracts are great given the increasing importance of granular geographic data in place-based policies. I'm sure you're all aware of opportunity zones. There is also something called high poverty areas. So if we know where it is that you're operating, it is much easier for us to later on report back on what it is that we've been doing to help you operate in, or serve high poverty areas or opportunity zones. FIPS codes are fine. Native American reservation names are also great, but if you don't have that information, you click no. We don't have that information. Again, this is very, very helpful for us, but we realize that it's not always easy to collect this kind of information. Next, I think that this is a bit of a capacity building maybe question. We just ask you about which tools you use to assess the progress of your project. And our hope was to maybe, use this questionnaire also as a resource to introduce some of the data sources. So if you weren't aware of the Stats America, we have quite a bit of really wonderful links with regional data. That's just fabulous. And but again, if you choose not to respond, you don't have to. Here we provide you with the option to to talk about outputs that were not captured in the questionnaire, maybe a success story or any annual data. And then this last question was actually proposed by our grantees, who said that it would be great if we gave them an opportunity to report on how they serve underserved populations in distressed communities. So finally, so finally, going back to responding to your question, you will be able to download all of your responses. So you can keep track of how you've been responding to this questionnaire by using this download PDF feature. Does this answer your question? More or less? Of how to.
It looks like it did, so great.
Okay, okay.
So there was actually a similar question about accessing data submitted for previous years. Does this track data from previous years as well?
So I would highly recommend downloading the data as you respond to these questionnaires yourself, and keeping these data on record. But if you cannot find it, I don't want to volunteer my team members who are on the phone or on this call right now. I'm pretty sure you could email program evaluation at eda.gov, and they could provide you with an extract of your data if you for whatever reason forgot to download this PDF or would like it in a different format.
So can you just, for those who may have missed it, can you reiterate the timing of these instruments and what that means for university centers, even if they're a current university center, let's say they received their first award in 2017?
So if you received your first award in 2017, you will be responding to these questionnaires, the semi-annual and annual, based on the scope of work that you've carried out on or after June 1st, 2020, if that makes sense. So both semi-annually and annually for 5 years, regardless of the duration of the period of performance for your grant. Semi-annually, you will be responding, like since June 1st, 2020, what kind of outputs has my organization, produced as part of the scope of work of the grant. So.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So, Okay, somebody asked if they can get a list of all the categories and metrics so that they can monitor themselves.
Yes, this is a wonderful idea, and I think that the reason why we haven't started sharing those lists right off the bat is because when you see a list of all the questions, it can look very overwhelming, because the experience of taking these questionnaires is not at all like the flood files with all of the questions that we've come up with. We do not anticipate for any given grantee to respond to 2 at most 3 categories of questions for either the outputs, semi-annual outputs, or the annual outcomes. Again, the reason why these instruments will seem very enormous when you see them in PDF form is because we've been trying to capture, all the overlaps, and everything that our grantees do. But yes, the answer is we can provide you with all of the questions. Just please do not worry that you have to respond to all of them. Like, that is not at all the point of the system.
Yeah, I think that's the key takeaway here for everyone who may be hearing this for the first time and is getting a bit overwhelmed with all the different types of questions and the semi-annual reporting and annual reporting. This is a very flexible tool, and one that allows you to be very particular about which questions you're answering. So like Ksenia has said, many of them will not be applicable to you, and so you can skip right through that. And so I think that the first time you do it may be a bit of a culture change and a culture shock, and it may take some more time than what you're used to doing, but as you do it, it'll get a lot easier because you'll know what categories apply to you.
Mm-hmm. And we're also hoping that by using these instruments, you will be empowered to develop your data management plan, and kind of like track what it is. I mean, we know that you already do that, and the reason why I know this is because I have seen the University Center annual reports, and much of the data that we're trying to capture here, I have seen in some of the University Center. So we hope that somehow this will be also a capacity building tool. And not as overwhelming as it seems right now. Are there any other questions? I'm just not having.
The last question is,
reading questions.
Is there, I think you mentioned that there's an opportunity for people to see them ahead of time, but not necessarily test it out on the platform itself, right?
Yes, we're still working through it. I hope so, but right now it's TBD.
Great. Thank you so much, Ksenia. This has been an excellent presentation, and I'm hoping that folks will continue to think through these, the things that were talked about today, and let us know if you have any questions. Unfortunately, Ksenia is leaving us. She got a fantastic position with BEA, and so she'll be leaving us next week, I believe. This is her last week, so we're very thankful for everything that you have done, Ksenia, and for giving us one last presentation on all of this. So moving forward, if you guys have any questions about any of this, I am your main point of contact. I'll be taking over the program side of it and implementing it moving forward.
Yes, and I have to say you're in excellent hands. No one knows as much about this project as Bernadette. She has been there all along, advising me on the program side, especially the UCs. And in addition to that, I know that some of my team members are also on the line right now. Aminata, Jason Goodwin, Akbar Naqvi, and now our new addition, Valeria Vargas. I hope I got the last name right. Like, they're supporting you, and you're in brilliant hands. And yes, thank you so much again for all the work that you do, especially in these trying times. We know that probably data collection is not the #1 priority on everyone's mind right now, but it really does help us keep this important work going. So we thank you for your work. it's we have quite a bit of lightning outside, so it's a crescendo.
Yeah, it's a bad storm right now.
Well, Ksenia, I'll let you know. So we started this about a year ago, and we had about 35, I think, participants on our first webinar. For the first time ever, you've capped us out. We've actually gone over our limit of our account, where we were at 99 people, and we couldn't fit any more people in the room. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So you're a very popular speaker. So with that, we do want to let you know that this video of the webinar will be available in about 2 weeks. It might be available before that, and we'll send out an email with that link to all of you when it is available. Again, it'll be available on the EAUC site as well as the EDA website, so you can access it both places. The other thing is that we will be having our next webinar in approximately a month and a half, or excuse me, approximately 2 months. The question is, we have to kind of jury around the dates. The UEDA conference is I think it's the 21st to the 24th, I believe, of September. So we might want to either schedule this during that or right after that event. So, and if you have topics,
stay tuned.
Yeah, if you have topics, speakers that you would like to have covered, I've actually seen in the news a number of the EDA University centers have published some great reports lately about COVID and other projects. Please let us know. We'd love to share with your colleagues. You can send your project directly to me or to Bernadette, and we'll be sure to get the news out about it to your colleagues. Any other comments or suggestions, Bernadette?
Nope, that'll be it. We'll send out a invite to the next meeting when we know when it is. But otherwise, feel free to send any questions you have to me, and if I don't have the answers, I will get them for you. But thank you to everyone who's already reached out during this webinar with updates to your UC profiles. I love it. Thank you. We'll make sure that we get everything updated soon, but we know we've kept you long, so we appreciate your attendance and participation and look forward to continuing the conversation.
All right. Thank you all. Stay safe.